first time in SailGP. Welcome to the iconic seaside community of Saint-Tropez, one of the world's most glamorous destinations, and for the third time, a host city for the world's best sailors, as SailGP's fourth season makes a stop on the Côte d'Azur. This is the France Sail Grand Prix Saint-Tropez. After two exciting events in the U.S., the 10 national teams have made the move to European waters. The beauty of this region will play host to 2 days of racing on the crystal blue waters of the Mediterranean. Alongside Olympian Stevie Morrison and former world champion Emily Nagel, I'm Todd Harris. Points are at a premium as Season 4 enters the European leg of the calendar, and as every team looks to maximize their position going into the final day, 3 fleet races are scheduled for today, with an additional 2 races tomorrow before the last race, the event final, which will feature only the top 3 teams on points after the 5 races. And it's worth noting that each team wins 10 points for each victory. Last place only gets you a single point. And before we go racing, it's time to take a look at the course that we have here on the beautiful Mediterranean here in Saint-Tropez, France, for stop number 3 of Season 4.
Well, the course here in Saint-Tropez, as always, requires a fast start to lead at Mark 1. After the first turn, the boats can sail their own course, trying to find the shortest time between gates. At each gate, they can turn left or right. Remember, sailing boats only go at fast when they're sailing at an angle to the wind, so we see them zigzagging around the course to give themselves tactical advantage. It's a gusty, shifty wind here in Saint-Tropez, so sailing the shortest course and trying to stay on the foils is going to be the ticket to finishing first under the fans on the shoreline here in Saint-Tropez.
Well, the fans continue to make their way down to this beautiful part of the world as they get ready for some of the greatest racing out on water. This is SailGP. This is the France Sail Grand Prix Saint-Tropez, event 3 of Season 4. Before we go racing, we want to bring you up to speed on what has happened so far, and it has been some great action out on the water at some very iconic locations. Starting off, Stevie, in Chicago.
Well, Chicago got off to a great start, a brilliant first day, fast foiling fun out there for the teams, and it was no surprise to see that New Zealand came out the blocks like win second day, but they got their season off and running with a victory, and they'll desperately want to win that championship.
After Chicago, we headed to LA, a new venue for everyone. We had a really impressive performance by Spain and Denmark, our Season 3 underdogs. But we did have disappointing results by GBR, New Zealand and France, which has really impacted their overall performance this season.
And the big winners in Los Angeles, Spain, gets their very first victory in SailGP, and they celebrated in style on the Pacific. So after 2 events coming into France, it looks like this. The 3-time defending and reigning champions, Australia on top with 17 points. Spain and Rockwell, Denmark are tied on 16. Then you've got Canada, New Zealand, Emirates, GBR, the USA, France, Switzerland, Germany still looking for some big performances out on the water. And some big news happening actually on the water, Stevie. 2 teams deciding we'll swap flight controllers.
Yeah, I mean, it was some update we got to hear. Jason Saunders has left the Swiss team to join the French. Francois Morvan, he's gone across to Switzerland. Now, we don't know why, but to move someone in your big 3 at the back of the boat, it strikes me there's got to have been a falling out somewhere.
It could be drama, but also it could be a seamless transition. Jay Saunders, while he is a Kiwi, his partner Manon is French. She's one of the strategists on the teams. He is fluent in French, so it could actually be quite a seamless transition.
Well, it could be, and it'll be interesting to see who it works out well for. I mean, Francois Morvan, he's won events in SailGP. Of course, the French just missed out on the grand final last year, so can't help but feel it could be quite a good move for the Swiss. And they've got Nathan Outridge back at the back of the boat as well. He's in there as a strategist, so expect to hear a lot of his voice in the ear of Seb Snyder out there. But yeah, I think this could be a good move for the Swiss, but very interesting changes and big changes, Todd.
Yeah, we'll see what happens out on the water as France looking to have a big bounce back. Switzerland would also like to have a great showing here in these French waters. So the change, well, how will it all play out when the racing goes down? Earlier we spoke with their driver, Seb Snyder.
We were super impressed by Francois yesterday. I think he made a really good job of adapting in the team. You know, he was actually had to adapt to our playbook a little bit. He was used to do only one board in the maneuvers, and he straight away did the two boards perfectly. And yeah, in some of the maneuvers we actually felt better than before. So yeah, it was really impressive how quickly, yeah, he adapted to us, and we're really happy.
So the stage is set for day one of the France Sail Grand Prix Saint-Tropez. Let's go down on the water, check in with the fourth member of our broadcast team, Olympic silver medalist Lisa Darmanin.
Today in the Gulf of Saint-Tropez, we have a building thermal breeze. Winds are averaging 22 kilometres per hour and expecting to gust up to 28 kilometres from the southeast. The direction means the wind is blowing over the hills, making the breeze very gusty and puffy, but that provides plenty of opportunities for the sailors to find more wind and fly faster around the racetrack. They've got the tall 29-metre wings to harness plenty of power and keep foiling across the course. But we know it is probably all going to come down to the start, Todd. It's a very compact course out here.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa. Quick question before we let you go, Lisa, go racing. What's the anticipation for more wind throughout the day in this 90-minute window we have with the 3 races that we're expecting?
I think the wind will peak around race 2, and as I said, they've got those big wings, so the teams will have to be really careful to make sure they harness that power around that turning mark. That first turning mark could get pretty exciting, so I'm looking forward to the middle of the day out here.
All right, thank you very much. More from Lisa Darmanin down on the water throughout the day. Steve, we get a good look at France right now. One of the many teams, I should say, that is really looking for a big bounce back. Can they do it on home waters?
Well, yeah, I mean, big changes. I don't know who led those changes in terms of Jason Saunders coming across. Was that the French trying to steal Jason or the Swiss trying to steal Francois? I'm not sure. I get the feeling Contan was keen to sail with Jason. But we see there Amélie Rieu, strategist. Last year, she was on board the USA boat that won here. So she's actually won in Saint-Tropez. The French won since then as well. But they do need a bit of a turnaround. I expect big things for them. But to change someone in your back 3 is punchy at best.
Emily, you know how the configuration works on these teams. There's a lot of communication. There has to be that synchronicity working in spec. How hard is it to introduce someone like that and have success right off the bat?
It's definitely a challenge. You've got to adapt to the communication role. Every team has a different way of communicating their maneuvers, different names for things, and just the frequency and tonation that everyone's speaking in.
I think so. What you've got to remember, if you're sailing one of these boats, that back 3, you've got someone steering, you've got someone doing the big trimming, that huge wing sail, trying to get the power out of that, and then you've got a third person trying to fly the boat. So try driving your car with someone doing the gears, someone doing the pedals, and someone doing the steering wheel to actually not crash or to get to any form of performance. It's a big change, and to just bring that in mid-season, I mean, you know, I'm sure they've got their reasons, but I'd love to. Hopefully we get to speak to Contan on the water at some stage today, and we'll be able to find out what the thinking was.
Well, it's 90 seconds away from put-up time as the 10 international teams get themselves into position here for race number 1. 3 races scheduled for today here on the beautiful Mediterranean, and right now the Australians, they lead the overall series. Can they get a good start? Yesterday in practice, they were not the sharpest team, Stevie. That honor would probably go to Denmark.
Denmark sailed a great event in Los Angeles, and yeah, yesterday they had the best practice day, but unfortunately, the practice day counts for absolutely nothing, which is good news for Australia. They didn't have a good day. But anyway, all that's in the books now. It's how do you perform in this next 60 seconds to get off the start.
So 1 minute away from the start of the first race here in France as everyone gets into position. We've had many different courses around the world, Stevie. What makes this one unique, and where do you want to position yourself?
Well, the Mediterranean conditions, often more of a bumpy sea state than the wind will give you, but there's light breezes. Can they get the boats on the foils? I expect there to be a lot of on and off the foil action, so it's who can take the boat off best. As we're on board here, Canada now. Phil Robertson spins the boat down, trying to protect his space.
Penalty Canada relative to Switzerland. Zealand.
Oh, too aggressive, too late. Canada's going to need to start out behind the fleet here. Disaster for them. We see that blue triangle. That marks the pole position here. Great Britain, they're going to have a bit of a run up, but it's New Zealand and Denmark well positioned in the middle of the line. Australia trying to dive in, but he's going to struggle to find a gap at the top of this line, Tom Slingsby. 10 seconds to go. Here we go. We're watching for the line to turn white, and then we'll be racing here in Saint-Tropez. Your timing looks a little early, Tom Slingsby. Who can get on the foils first as we blast to Mark 1? Oh, I think Australia just kept himself behind the line, but New Zealand out the middle of the line. They're going to be fast in towards Mark 1 from here. They've got a great angle. Can they hang on and roll around the top of the Germans?
On board with the Kiwis as they approach mark number 1, 6 legs race. This is the first of 3 races today in France. And look at the Germans in good position as well. France is also there.
New Zealand just in time. They had just enough speed to get over the top. Great start by Eric Heil on board the German boat as well. They were showing good form yesterday as New Zealand are going to be setting up for gate 2 very soon. Tight course, as Lisa said. Manoeuvres are key, but if you're out in front, you can choose your own destiny.
Emirates GBR the first to turn away. The Americans look like they're going to join them as Canada and Spain also decide to pull away this time. And New Zealand leading the fleet out in front. They also make the maneuver. So it's New Zealand, Germany, and France. 1, 2, and 3 here as we move on to leg 2.
Here we go. New Zealand well set up. They're going to be trying to minimise the... Every time you turn the boat, you slow down. Now, you've got to turn the boat because the boats can't sail straight upwind and downwind. But New Zealand, we look for a left turn here. I imagine they're going to try and keep it simple.
Currently, they are the fastest boat on the course, the only team doing over 50 kilometres an hour.
Huge lead. They're not going to have to do any more manoeuvres, but most of the other boats, I think Denmark are going to struggle to get there without doing 2 more turns. Germany have missed the manoeuvre and fallen off the foils. They're slow coming into gate 2, and it's going to be really, really tight in the middle of the pack. Denmark will round second, and the USA, well, this is a much better start to the day for Jimmy Spitt. It was the Germans. They push it. That's going to be a penalty on Germany, I would have thought. They had to give right of way to the US, and I expect a protest, but we'll find more on that later as Emirates GBR dive inside. They're going to look to go around this mark in 3rd place. Great first downwind leg by the British crew, and they're going to get themselves moving upwind in clear wind. And we'll find out which side of the course is likely to be more favoured.
We can currently see on the top left that wind speeds are at 14.1 kilometres an hour. Now, that is the critical speed to be able to get up onto the foils. So we're not expecting foiling manoeuvres at this point from the teams.
So upwind now on leg number 3.
You see down there on the left-hand side, we can see the true wind on New Zealand is a little bit more than Great Britain. If you can find more wind, that number on the top of our line there, you should be able to sail the boat faster. That's our fuel out here on the water today. So for those of you new to SailGP, let's remember the crews out there, the wind is not the same all over this course. So the crews are looking around, they're trying to find more wind, trying to find a different direction in wind to either go faster or sail a shorter distance.
And that wind is now dropping now below 12 kilometers an hour, so no one up and foiling right now, and they're trying to find that puff of wind, that gust that Lisa reported should be filling in on that other side of the course, and everyone's trying to find, Stevie, the sweet spot.
Yeah, and I think one thing to remember really here, I mean, when you're in the pack, like you see on the right-hand side of the screen there, they've got a big wing. And that wing is blocking the wind. So anyone further back in the fleet is getting more turbulent wind. So the key to doing good manoeuvres today, really, is to do them in space. When you're up and foiling, when you're going fast, and De La Pierre on board France has done a great job of finding some space. They're up and foiling here, and they're going to get themselves charging back towards the Kiwi crew at the moment.
USA was sitting in 3rd. They've dropped back to 6th as they found somewhat of a dead spot on the course right now, and they've dropped both holes into the water. And now France back up and foiling again. They sit in 2nd place behind New Zealand. Denmark sits in 3rd.
Here we go. They're going to be setting up for a manoeuvre soon here. Don't think they're going to be able to stay on the foils, but a good manoeuvre will be crucial. Let's watch in, see how this French crew can do. Bottom right-hand corner of our screen. They're about to turn. They've got clear wind, clear space. It looks like they do a nice manoeuvre. Look at that top of our screen. The whole fleet is drawn together. They're going to be struggling for much wind, and they all look very slow. It's going to get richer for New Zealand and France right now. But the Danes are up on the foils, middle of the screen, and they have the right of way. If it's close between Denmark and France, in about 5 seconds' time, it's going to be right of way Denmark.
This is the umpire's penalty, Canada, relative to Germany. port take boat not keeping clear.
But we've got a similar situation coming here. The French don't have the right of way. He's got to be confident that he's clear. Oh, he's judged it well, Contan. They've kept the boat up on the foils. We can see there one boat up in the air foiling, one boat in the water. It just is such a big difference in speed if you can get that right. If you get it wrong and fall off the foils, it's very, very costly.
GBR looking really good here. They're one of the few teams up on the foils and coming across now.
I think what we're going to see a little bit of today, Todd, is as you come up, well, we had to speak to Lisa about this, hopefully, as the day goes on, but this top gate here, up under the shoreline, it's great for the fans under the shore there, but there won't be many ripples on the rosé on that shore at the minute, because there's a lot less wind at the top end of this course, so the boats struggle to stay on the foils. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to go down in the water very soon and find out with Lisa how it looks.
All right, let's do that. Let's go down and check in with Lisa Darmanin as they approach the next gate. Lisa, what are you seeing? And we'll have to check back in with Lisa as we reconnect comms with her. This is leg 3 of 6, so nearing the halfway point. It is still New Zealand out in front. Great Britain now overtakes them, and they move into lead with New Zealand dropping back to 3rd, make it 4th with Denmark now in the 3rd position.
I think that could be an issue with our graphics at the moment there, Todd, because actually New Zealand did a good job. They're up on the foils, and I think what's interesting is the side that New Zealand's coming to here is away from the shoreline. I expect there to be a little bit more breeze out that way. Surprised to see Great Britain turn away so soon. But it wouldn't be the first time Ben Ainsley's seen something I haven't.
Happy for it.
So as the rest of the fleet makes their way onto leg number 4 of 6, it'll be down the course, then back up, and then a quick right-hand turn to the finish line. We'll try checking in with Lisa Darmanin one more time. Big, massive boats up at the top of the course, Lisa.
Stand by, Jabe.
There's actually a big hill that's sitting just above the gate that the boats are going around, and the wind is dumping over the top of it. So as they round that gate, they really accelerate. Where Great Britain and Denmark are going right now, that's where the gains were made the previous leg. So I think they're actually going to do quite well out of this. Keep your eyes on the Danish team.
So Denmark currently sitting in 2nd place.
Oh, there's a bit of action top left-hand side of screen. Apologies for the industrial language coming off the boats there. We can see a really tight move. Spain looked like they turned right in front of the Canadians. Oh, and it was the boat, the Canadians, that should have had the right of way in that situation. Got to expect a penalty coming here. Phil Robertson, obviously heightened moves there. We can see boats falling off the foils. Inaccuracy of manoeuvres. Decision-making is really, really hard.
And happy takeoff.
Well, just before we checked in with Lisa down on the water, you saw 4 boats all looking to see like they were jockeying for one spot. Meanwhile, we go on board with Switzerland. See the penalty now being doled out, looks like, to Canada, their 3rd penalty of this race.
Wow, that is amazing that the Canadians got a penalty for that. I only assume that Phil Robertson just didn't see the Spanish. I'd have thought they'd been coming at each other from a different direction. Bit of an unforced error by the Canadians there. Here we go. We're going to get to see what happened here. Canada, well, they had the right of way there, but he's manoeuvring. Oh, my Lord, look at the turn there. Wow. That's incredible scenes out there on the water. I mean, that we're going to have to ask a little bit more detail. The right of way looked to be with the Canadians, but they were turning direction here.
on board.
Oh, my word. I mean, that is a big, big moment. Hopefully no one's hurt. It looks like it stayed clear.
He did nothing there to even consider moving out of the way.
Got to say I agree with Phil on that one. I'm surprised which way the penalty went, but anyway, there we go. Mine is not to judge too heavily, but I was very surprised that the Canadians got a problem for that.
Back to the racing. We've got New Zealand still out in front and gaining every minute. The Brits have rounded in 2nd, with the Danish just coming up now in 3rd.
Here's Rockwell, Denmark, making their way around. 1 hole in the water. H1 for them.
Okay, happy, H1 job. Yep.
Yeah, it's light at the bottom of that course, isn't it, Todd? And I think what we can see here, look, top left of our screen, New Zealand, just showing the benefits of being out in front. And, of course, they don't tend to make many mistakes on that New Zealand boat either. So, good positioning. He's sailing parallel to that yellow line that the Kiwi boat's sailing parallel to. That's what we call the ley line. That means he's going to make the next gate with no more turns required.
And here in the numbers, we can see just how much better the Kiwis are doing. 60% of the time they have been foiling. GBR in 2nd, only at 53%, and the Danish in 3rd, down to 34%. And you can see that in their average speeds.
Some of the teams moving up the ladder, others moving down. For the USA SailGP squad, Stevie, they were as high as 3rd on the 2nd leg, and now they find themselves dead last in 10th.
story of their season, really. I think it's just slightly inaccurate manoeuvres. They fall off the foils, and then it's really, really painful to get back on the foils. Tom Slingsby here, he was stuck in the back of the pack. They've just sailed accurately and potentially going to get themselves a scoring result out of this. Middle of the pack, though, is still a long, long way behind this team. New Zealand, well, they look pretty slick out there today. Should be just one more turn to do at the gate, and then they're going to be finishing in under the fans.
They've just taken off out there.
Pretty cruisy view. Interesting back of the boat there, Joe Allais, back on board as strategist. Bit of a change up by the Kiwis. She's been busy with her Olympic sailing programme through the early season, but of course she came on board when they won their first event in Plymouth last year. And well, perhaps no coincidence that she's back on board and they're straight out in front.
Look at this lead for the Kiwis out in front, the winners of the first event in Chicago, and they look to start things off here in Saint-Tropez with a big victory in race number 1. No one within sight of New Zealand SailGP, and it'll be Peter Burling and crew that'll bring it across the finish line in front of the Adrenaline Lounge to the applaud of the fans here in France on a beautiful day for sailing. The Kiwis with a great start, never really threatened throughout this race, and they will bring it home for a victory in race number 1. Meanwhile, penalty doled out to the Americans as they drop into 9th. So with one hole in the air, it is New Zealand that wins race number 1 here at the France Sail Grand Prix Day 1, Saint-Tropez.
As Pete Burling saying, great start, guys, and I can't disagree. I mean, they led at Mark 1, brilliant start in these light conditions. And then, well, if you lead, you get the first pick of the goods in terms of the decision-making process. And we can see that when you're back in the pack, it's just so much harder to get up and going. But Emirates GBR, they were in the pack at gate number 2, found some space, and they've sailed well. And I think this is a pretty important event for Ben and the crew, because you can't beat around the bush. They're not doing very well in season 4.
Yeah, currently Emirates GBR sits in 6th place overall on 9 points. And they've never had a problem, Stevie, it seems like, on day number 1 of the race. It's the second day that usually does them in. So a 2nd place finish is a great way to start their campaign here on the Med.
Good composure.
Good composure. Well, I think you're going to need to keep your composure out there today. That is for sure. And, well, let's say Denmark here, Rockwool, Denmark, I mean, they sail very, very well in practice, and it's kind of quite symptomatic of how they are sailing at the moment. They're in the pack, but they're able to find, but if you are in the pack, the only way you can overtake is to try and get yourself sailing away from other boats, to find clear wind, find some space. And at the moment, Nikolai, and he's got Katja Selva Iversen behind him there in the strategist role, doing a very nice job of getting their head out of the boat and finding that space, and then the crew on board are delivering a fast boat to sail. So good result by Rockwool Denmark.
I think they also make very intelligent decisions at all of the gate marks. They choose the sides with least boats, and we've seen big park-ups, especially at that last bottom gate, where if you can get that space that you're talking about, Stevie, you can make huge gains getting ahead of multiple boats at one point.
So the Danes will check in at 3rd place as they cross the line, and now we've got a real dash to the finish for that 4th spot. Right now it's Australia that has the lead. Here comes Switzerland on their right-hand side, and France right behind them.
Yeah, Switzerland have the right of way in this situation here, Todd, so they're allowed to dive in and turn, and they're foiling, so they're going a lot quicker. Slingsby has to turn away. He's got to make sure he doesn't get himself stuck inside the Swiss. No right of way with Australia here, but the Swiss have done a nice job of getting the manoeuvre done, and they should now be able to get through and forth. What a comeback from the Swiss. You heard the voice of Nathan Outridge there, strategist, the wind whisperer at the back of the boat. Really enjoyed that, found some space. They were in last position early on in this race, and they've come back to what's going to be a very good counting 4th. Good recovery, exactly. I think that's going to be the story of the day. If you are in the pack, there's plenty of racing left on a day like this.
This is the umpires. Penalty France, relative Germany, not entitled to room at the mark.
Oh, wow.
So France will have to drop back and lose a position. So 1 through 5 has now been contested. France will have to bear away. It looks like Germany may benefit as Spain will come in, and Spain will get 6th place.
It's a really tight finish. The French desperation there, diving in, and they've done a big manoeuvre here. Oh, wow. Costly for the French. France, USA and Canada. Not a great first race.
So France having issues at the end. They were battling for a 6th possible position. They end up finishing in 8th place. The USA comes in 9th. They were as high as 3rd in that first race, and they crossed the line. Stevie, as you pointed out, just too many unforced error. In Canada, they picked up not one, not two, but three critical penalties, especially the one that got them at the start line, and then that one in the middle with the collision. We'll have to find out how that plays out with Spain.
Yeah, I think when we've looked back a little bit at the footage of that incident, I think what's been deemed by the umpires is the Spanish had already done their manoeuvre, and when the Spanish had finished their manoeuvre, despite not being in the right of way, Canada weren't lined up to hit them. The umpires have deemed that Canada changed direction to line up a collision, to make it into a situation, and then Canada were too late bailing out of that, which caused the collision. So yeah, for me, big call by the umpires, but they see a lot more data than we do. So tricky start for the Canadians, because if you have a crash, then you're going to get penalty points as well.
So a big first race, race number 1 of the France Sail Grand Prix Saint-Tropez is in the books. It is New Zealand that gets the win, the winner of the first event in Chicago. We now go on board with Peter Burling and crew. And Pete, what a way to start things off here in Saint-Tropez. We were expected lighter winds. How did it play out for you guys, and how were you able to find so much good space?
Yeah, it's definitely about as shifty and tricky as we've had it this whole season so far. So I think we obviously got off the start line pretty good, led at Mark 1, and then managed to get out of that second top mark, which was really where it was at.
Pete, tricky time at the rugby last night against the French, but clearly enjoying the conditions here. What's your priorities for this next race? Is there easy to have a good plan for the start?
I think you've got to be a little dynamic with your approach. Yeah, the breezes are just up and down, like 10k an hour or something, so you're ending with some huge gains and losses on the timings, but yeah, you just got to make sure you're good to go.
Pete, how are you guys feeling coming off that little bit of break and being in North America for so long, and now you're in European waters? I know you've always had great success here. How does it feel to be back in the Mediterranean?
Oh, it's awesome. We love it here in Europe. Yeah, we're traditionally done really well in these European leagues, and you know, just loving having so many friends and family around. You know, it seems like everyone in New Zealand wants to come hang out in Saint-Tropez, so we're loving having them.
All right, we appreciate the time, Pete. Congratulations. We'll look for you in race number 2. So it's New Zealand that gets the win in race number 1. Well played by them. Stevie, you talk about it all the time. If you get yourself into open space away from the crowd, you get undisturbed wind, and you can really choose what you want to do.
Yeah, if you've got clear air, no exhaust around, you can go fast, get the full performance out of these boats. And of course, there's few teams as good at New Zealand at doing that when they get the opportunity.
What a day on the Mediterranean. Let's go back to the start of the race, Stevie. After Canada gets a penalty, it was all on at the line.
Yeah, so often the start absolutely crucial, and we saw the Germans did a great job at the bottom of the line, but it was New Zealand that managed to convert that midline start into a lot of boat speed. The British, Emirates GBR, they're in the pack, but I think this was perhaps a story of the race for Ainsley and the British. He was very aggressive in terms of sailing a strategy that differed to the rest of the fleet, and that meant he did find space. So New Zealand, we can see they were first out to take a left turn, but Emirates GBR, thanks to Ainsley's move back up the course, meant he could lead out of the right turn. And if you're leading out of one of these gate marks, you have clear wind. If you've got clear wind, the boats are going to be able to get up on foiling and are going to be able to get that speed that helps them get round the course quicker. So Ainsley did a brilliant job from in the pack of finding space. Well, he then maximised that, really. He got back in the race, in behind New Zealand, and New Zealand, well, they're the class of the field, so they made no mistakes from that position. But for Ainsley, for Rockwool Denmark, and they managed to make things go pretty well.
Yeah, top 3 goes New Zealand, Emirates GBR, and Rockwool Denmark. Top 3, the big winners in race number 1. Well, a beautiful day here in this part of France. Day 1 of the France Sail Grand Prix Saint-Tropez. This is event 3 of season 4. Stevie, this was the moment, though, everyone will be talking about at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, and you can see a slight curve in the wake of the Canadian boat, and I think that's what the umpires are adjudicating. They're saying that the Canadians turned towards the Spanish to cause a collision, and that the Spanish didn't have time to keep clear. I mean, I find that it's a punchy manoeuvre by the Spanish, and we see there the Canadians' left-hand side of screen. They just got down off the foil. They were just low enough that they didn't actually fully board Canada. Very, very aggressive. But we see there, look, I mean, it's a very hard. As soon as you're off the foils for the Spanish, it's hard to keep clear. They put themselves in a very, very vulnerable position there, and well, luckily no big disaster.
We have heard that there is damage on board, though, so we can expect some penalty points to get doled out at some point.
Wow. Keep the good news coming.
So both boats involved in that crash will be inspected closely. Remember, it was Canada and Spain that got together on the Mediterranean. Not what they were looking for, not the way they wanted to start off. The opening day here in France in Saint-Tropez.
Wow, what a way to start things off up in Europe. Saint-Tropez, day one, turning it on. We saw an absolutely thrilling start. It was all teams up and foiling. The Australians looked like they got shut out on that top end of the line, and it was their compatriots across the ditch, the Kiwis, that came flying through to lead at Mark 1. But wow, I want to talk about that moment. We heard it from on board the boat here, Canada and Spain coming together in what was a big collision. And Phil Robertson, the driver on board Canada, certainly didn't mince his words about what he thought about that collision. But penalty going against Canada, no doubt we're going to hear a lot more about that when we go to shore. But I want to talk about the conditions here. Saint-Tropez, it is just absolutely glamour. We got the crystal clear waters. That breeze is just funneling right over top of Saint-Tropez. We've got a brilliant bunch of super yachts out here, and we came past the sea wall earlier as well. And just so great to see so many fans. Looking ahead to race number 2, it looks like conditions are settling in, similar to what we saw in practice race yesterday. Remembering we saw the breeze pick up quite a lot towards the back end of practice racing. So that's something that these teams will be looking out for as they head into race 2. So for now, we take a small break. Teams are going to be going aboard, looking at those data points that we had in that last race as well. And this is what I find really interesting, is that the teams don't have their coaches out on the water. This is the first event that we've actually seen the coaches staying ashore. So they're getting all the data off the boats, all the camera angles, and they can feed that data, they can feed that information back to the teams that are on the boat. So this is the first time that we've seen it. Not all teams are doing it. I know the New Zealand team has been using that to their advantage. I spoke to Ray Davies this morning. He said, hey, if you get any data off the water that I'm not getting, can you send it my way? But it doesn't quite work like that. So that's just a great initiative that we're seeing. But one of the big standouts for me was the comeback there in that last race from the Switzerland team. We know they've had some big changes with flight controllers, where they've got Nathan Alderidge back on the boat as well. The Aussies were with them too, climbing up the leaderboard. So race 2, it's all to play for. Stopwatch is on. It's coming our way.
Back in beautiful Saint-Tropez, France, event 3 of season 4. It's the France Sail Grand Prix. We take a look at the standings after one event. Remember, it's 10 points for win, 1 point for last. Emirates New Zealand, they get the victory. New Zealand gets the victory. Emirates GBR in second place, with Rockwell, Denmark finishing in third. Then Switzerland, Australia, Spain, Germany, France, USA finishing in ninth, and a rough way for Canada to start their campaign here in France. Before we get to the next race, let's go down on the water and Lisa Darmanin.
Well, Todd, the wind has shifted slightly to the right, which is why we're seeing the right-hand side of the course, that shore side, working a lot better. I think if a team makes it out in front, then they can sail their own race. They should minimise the manoeuvres with this big, heavy 29-metre wing. If you're behind, it's about going the opposite way. If you can prioritise that right-hand side, that is going to be key. If you're from 6th to 10th, it's going to be tough. So they're going to have to do something magical to catch back up if you're back in the pack at that first turning gate.
Hey, Lisa, I got to ask you, where were you in position to the Spain-Canada incident? Did you see it, and what was your take?
Yeah, I did see it. Unfortunately, I just catch the tail end of it. It looks pretty tight. I don't know. I know that the umpires are seeing a lot more than we are. But yeah, it was a pretty rough penalty on my eyes. But this course is so compact. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few more things like that where there's late decisions being made and hopefully no contact. But there's not a lot of room on the course out here.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa. It's good to see Canada up and sailing yet again. The determination on the face of Phil Robertson, and Stevie, I can only imagine how frustrated he is, because it looked like they had a great start, penalized in the pre-start, but then double penalties back to back.
Yeah, I mean, they've got themselves up and running, and Phil's a world match race champion. There's an awful lot of experience on that boat. Chris Draper sat there in front of him, the wing trimmer, and they've sort of been there and seen it all before. But that incident, I mean, I think Lisa's point, the most important point we should remember is the umpires can see a lot more than us. And the rules are the rules. So they'll be judging based on far more information than the little snapshots we're seeing on the screen here and that Lisa can see from maybe 200 metres away on the water. So I think we have to, understand that there is more detail in it, but again, that you're always going to get tight decisions that go to an umpire, go to someone's interpretation of the rule. Phil clearly didn't agree with the umpire's interpretation, but it is what it is. They've got to move on now and try and get things going a lot better.
So coming up on 2.5 minutes to go before the start of race number 2. Emily, a lot of things to digest after race number 1, but everyone, as Stevie says, got to look to race 2.
Yeah, so looking forwards to race 2, as Lisa mentioned, the wind has shifted further right. So the original wind direction coming over the land, a little bit left of Saint-Tropez. Well, now it's coming directly over the city, straight over the hills. So because of that, we're going to have a few more of these helicopter puffs where the teams can't see them quite as well, and it's going to be quite gusty at that top end. Hopefully towards the bottom, it'll be a little more consistent wind direction, and we can see some good mark groundings.
The all-important question here in Saint-Tropez, which way is the wind coming, Stevie, and how much is coming our way as we are now at 1:45 before the start of race number 2?
We are, and well, it's all about the pre-race manoeuvres here to try and be able to hit the start line fast on the foils. We can see that start line in the middle of our screen. They're going to be coming from the side that the German boat is on the top of our screen at the moment, back down. So all the boats here coming into the starting box. They'll be on a timed run, but Pete told us you've got to be fairly fast on your feet and adaptive to the situation. The Kiwis do always like to be towards the back end of the boats coming in, which lets them see where everyone else lines up, pick their spot, and then hope to execute things. And well, anyone that needs a good race right now, it's Canada. They've got to turn things around after a disastrous race 1.
That was interesting, the take when we talked with Peter Burley of New Zealand, how he was just so calculated, and it was just so matter of fact of how to get a great start. Just point by point, he just checks the box and moves along.
Yeah, they'll have a system. They're a very experienced team, and they've really sort of unlocked the code in many ways as to how to get off this start line well so often. But now they're right in the middle of the pack on that New Zealand boat towards the top of our screen. Can they find some space from there? I don't know that it'll be that easy. Australia well positioned, Denmark well positioned. They're early back. Denmark are close to the start line here. Hard for them to accelerate, so it's all about the judgment of when to take the boat off. Slingsby, much better positioning, and Great Britain and New Zealand have now found some space. New Zealand to the right-hand side of our screen are foiling, and they've got a good run in at the start line here. Well positioned on board. Denmark, Australia, New Zealand and Great Britain towards the top right of our screen, but the blue spot in the middle of the line there, that's the pole position, that's the position on the start that will give you the fastest angle towards Mark 1. It's all about your timing now though. Spain look a little bit early at the bottom of our screen, and France coming through at the top of the screen. Line turns white, penalty Germany, penalty Spain.
Early start penalty Spain and Germany, no delayed starters.
They're going to need to drop back in the pack from there, and the French, well, they're going to be leading away at Mark 1. France and Australia, Australia with the faster angle from the middle of the line. On board with Spain here, they've got to drop behind the whole fleet. As we see France are on the inside, they have the right of way. Can they hold on? Yes, they can. Great rounding by De La Pierre on board the French boat there, and now it's their chance to stretch away.
So it's France, Australia, and Great Britain at mark number 1, race number 2.
First to turn away in the background, it's a repeat of race 1. Emirates, Great Britain, he likes what he sees on that side of the course. First to turn, followed rapidly by New Zealand and Switzerland. They all like the wind on that side of the course. Top of our screen, that's where Lisa Darmanin said she saw more wind. If they can get into more wind, they will be able to sail these F50s faster. And we can see already, moving down our ladder lines, left to right across the screen. That's taken us, that's taken us towards gate 2, and it looks like Australia have judged this one well out of the middle. Should be looking for a left turn at gate 2, and I think Australia will lead from here.
And look at Australia, they have overtaken the French on the ladder lines as they approach gate number 2. So it'll be Australia, France, and Great Britain, the top 3 here at gate number 2 at the bottom of the course, with the Australians desperately needed a big victory here. They got a 5th in race number 1.
Interesting here, Todd, what we see there. We see Australia and France. They've chosen to keep things simple, but New Zealand have chosen to do an extra manoeuvre, but they will be the first boat to turn right here out of gate number 2. Good opportunity for them to get going here and find some space in clear wind. Clever tactics by the New Zealand crew. They set that up at mark 1. They made this happen. Now, have they found some wind? Can they stay fast?
In general, across the course, we are seeing more breeze. We're between 15 and 25 kilometres an hour of wind So that's good news for all the teams. More foiling maneuvers, hopefully, and some higher speeds.
There's pressure this way. We want to go all the way, I think.
That's the voice of Kyle Langford, Wing Trim Australia. They're top of our screen now. We can see them going as exactly like Kyle asked for, all the way to the boundary, maximising the width of the pitch there. So if Kyle's right and has found more wind, we'd expect a good gain for Australia here versus New Zealand. Well, they had a pretty good lead already anyway. They're out in front, and we know the Roos tend to be pretty good when they've got a lead. They rarely give it up.
Australia, the three-time defending and reigning SailGP champions, currently lead with a 1 point in the overall over Spain and Rockwool, Denmark, and this would be a huge improvement off that 5th place performance in race number 1. This is similar, Stevie, to what we saw in race 1 with the Kiwis checking out, and now it's the Australians' turn with France, USA, Great Britain, and Spain now all mired in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, don't be surprised to see that now. What New Zealand are doing is, we can see there Great Britain are going right to left, New Zealand going straight up our screen, and most of the race, New Zealand have been trying to keep going the opposite directions to other boats, which will give them space. But there's nothing better than having the space out in front. We're going to see Australia. Well, we've got our ladder lines on the course. They show how far they've progressed up the course, but we can see 150 metres lead already. And I think we can expect Australia to try and keep things pretty simple from here.
At gate 3, it is Australia out in front, and they have got a huge lead, nearly 200 meters, with France sitting in 2nd place. The Americans are back in the mix, with Great Britain just off their left-hand side as they reach back to the top of the course. Let's check in with Lisa Darman. And Lisa, what are you seeing? It looks like there may be some shifting going on with the wind.
Yeah, huge right shift. So the American team and the British team were just sailing way less distance. So that's how they've got back into the race. But really tight battle here between USA and Great Britain, getting very slow. So the boats behind have an opportunity to catch these boats now.
Yeah, you see Great Britain there. They opted the last second to pull away and split the course with the Americans. But both of them, to Lisa's point, Stevie, very slow up there, and they've lost the wind.
Well, they have, but also to Lisa's point, the right turn at the top is the side of the course that she said she's seen more wind. That was the side of the course where USA and Great Britain actually made a gain. So a little bit surprising to see Emirates Great Britain turning the other way and choosing to do an extra manoeuvre. It means he did have some space, but he's now trapped by the Spanish. It was a lot of manoeuvres to do very quickly. New Zealand, they turn right as well. They look to follow the United States. That top of the screen, as we were just seeing then, where Spain have turned towards now, that's where Lisa's saying she's seeing more wind. So we can only assume that would be the more favoured side of the course. Be interesting for Great Britain whether or not they can hang on to 3rd position from where they are now.
Impressive performance here by the French. We saw them in the top 3 in the last race, but they couldn't quite hold on to it. Well, they seem to have sorted out those gremlins and pushing hard to catch the Australians back up. That previous leg, we did see them 4 kilometres an hour slower on that upwind leg than the Australians. I think a lot of that has to do with the manoeuvres. The Aussies are just managing all of those turns a lot better.
They just don't make a lot of mistakes. Tom Slingsby and the Australians looking so clean and so smooth. We talk about the points. Remember, it's 10 points for a win, 1 point for last place. France finished in 8th in the first race, so if they can finish with a 2nd, Stevie, that will be a huge salvage on the day. And, of course, Australia finishing the 5th. If they can hold on for 1st, that's enormous.
Yeah, feels like a high-scoring event, this one, doesn't it? You can see if you get a good start, you can easily sail away and hang on to these positions. But if you don't get your start quite right, which is often a split-second decision, right? Doesn't matter how good you are, you've got a big, big job on to get back into the pack. As we can see at the moment, New Zealand stuck in that pack, and Switzerland, who had a great race 1, well, they're right at the back. It's going to be very, very tight down here at this gate. Spain have got a nice turn left. Where do Great Britain go? Where do New Zealand go? Can they get round in front of the Danes? New Zealand look like they're going to go right turn. Great Britain, they're off the foils again. A lot of manoeuvres by this British crew at the moment. It's going to be doing a hard job to stay fast when you have... Oh, my word. Oh, wow. Did New Zealand give enough space to Denmark there? That was very, very tight. Denmark looked like they had rights to be on the inside, but maybe they dived in there too late.
Well, the big question, I guess, Stevie, for those people who maybe are new to sailing, and we've talked about this from your reporting and Lisa Darmanin down on the water, the right side seems to have more wind. People might say, why don't they just stay on the right side of the course the whole time?
Well, that is a great question, Todd, and that's because our boats can't sail straight into the wind. That's why we see them kind of heading off in different directions here. They're sailing at an angle of about 45 degrees to the wind. And, well, if you do a lot of manoeuvres, you'll fall off the foils and be very slow. So it's constantly a compromise. Do I want to do extra manoeuvres and hopefully be sailing fast in more wind, but I'm going to slow down every time I do a manoeuvre, or do I have to go to the wrong place at times?
Tom Slingsby.
Yeah, we see Tom Slingsby there. He's talking about a lefty. So that means the wind has changed direction to the left. You can see they're sailing only parallel to the ladder lines. If he turns the boat now, he'll be nearly progressing straight up the parallel. Oh, but he's run out of wind. Poor manoeuvre on board the Australian boat there. They just dropped out of the breeze. Got a bit tricky at the end, but that's the advantage of having a several hundred-metre lead. There are no problems.
Big opportunity for the French team here, who are currently up on the foils. We can see here coming across. While they might not get them, they have closed that gap.
Ooh, closed the gap. Australia has the right of way here, though. They've entitled to room on that mark, but they're going to be going straight through to the finish now. So the French will follow them from here, and it should be good news for the Australians. They should be comfortably clear and in for a race win here.
Coming into the final gate, it's the Australians getting pressure from France right behind them. Quentin Delapierre and his team doing a great job here in this second race on home waters, looking to salvage some points here with one more race still to go. But race number 2 here at the France Sail Grand Prix Saint-Tropez will belong to the Australians. The three-time reigning and defending champions win race 2 in France.
Some finish for the fans there. There's a lot of them on the shoreline, as we can see, scattered the whole way along the Saint-Tropez shoreline. They'll love seeing the hometown favourites coming in, and look how close the finish line is to the Adrenaline Lounge and to all the fans on the shore in Saint-Tropez. Good viewing today, great breeze, and in fact this gusty, shifty breeze, it does make for overtaking opportunities, which is pretty exciting. As we look at the right-hand side of our screen, the USA are coming in on the left-hand side for a third, but Emirates Great Britain, that decision to do those extra manoeuvres, they've dropped all the way back to 8th. Massive loss. And well, after picking their way through the fleet so well in the first race, struggled in this one, and third for the US, done the exact opposite of the British.
USA SailGP bounces back nicely from that first race 9th. They finish in 3rd in race number 2, and Spain will claim 4th. So Spain with a 6 and a 4, Stevie, not terrible for them.
No, very consistent. I think consistency is going to be pretty hard out here today. We can see 5th place Canada, they need that now. Denmark must keep clear. Really, really tight moment here. Denmark have got to keep clear. They've got to keep clear in New Zealand. He's going to try and force them up off the foils. Denmark did a good job of keeping clear, but that was aggressive from Burling, maximised the rules really well, and he is going to be able to finish ahead of the Danes from here, I would think, but both boats are off the foil. Can either of them get foiling? If anyone does... No, it's perfectly up on the foils for New Zealand, and they're going to bring it home there in 6th. Every point counts, and that was just in time for New Zealand.
So it's New Zealand getting 6th after winning the first race. Denmark will finish in 7th. The big winners, though, Australia in race number 2. Emirates GBR finishing off in 8th place. Steve, you go back just 2 legs, and they were battling for 3rd with the Americans, and they dropped back. Was that just a poor set of maneuvers, or just picked the wrong side of the course?
A little bit case in point to what you were asking me a minute ago, which I think I was possibly a bit wordy with, but they've chosen to do more maneuvers. They tried to stay where the more wind was, which should be a gain, but in doing so, they did a lot of extra maneuvers, and the maneuvers were very, very costly. If you fall off the foils when you turn the boat, to re-accelerate, it's going to take a lot of time, and for me, Emirates Great Britain just did too many maneuvers in that situation, got too slow for too long, and they lost a lot of distance.
Really topsy-turvy, very much the parity here in France, because you look at teams like USA, Canada, and France, they finished in the top 5 in the second race, where they finished in the bottom 5. Team like Switzerland that finished in 4th in race number 1, they finished in 10th on race number 2, but the big winners in race number 2, the Australians, the 3-time reigning and defending champions. Tom Slingsby and company back in the winner's circle on race 2. Tom, well done for you and the team. Give us an idea what it's like out there. We're hearing terms like shifty and really unpredictable. How is the Med treating you guys today?
Yeah, I think if you're on the bow camera, I'm on the other side of the boat. But hey guys, turn off your comms, Milky. Yeah, it's really tough out here, I've got to say. It's, yeah, super shifty, patchy, like everyone keeps saying. But, yeah, we're glad that we got through it pretty well.
OK, well, Tom, and maybe that race was perhaps a bit easy, if an easy race on a day like today is possible, but how important do you think it's going to be putting in a performance like you did in race 1, where you come charging back from back in the pack? How do you make that happen?
sorry, I've got race committee comms going at the same time, but yeah, look, race 1 was lucky. You don't want to use all your lucky cards. I don't want to be in that situation again, being dead last by a couple of 100 metres. I put that down to luck getting back. Obviously, the team sailed well and we put ourselves in a position to catch a few boats, but it's not where we want to be. We want to be up the front. That race was 10 times easier than race 1, and when you got clear air.
All right, Tom, appreciate the time. Congratulations on the win. We'll see you guys in race number 3. So knowing that the wind may be dying down on Sunday, it's going to put a premium on race number 3, the third and final race still to come here in Saint-Tropez.
So we had quite an eventful start for this race. We had the Spanish at the bottom of the line here, aiming for some clear space, but they got a little bit overexcited. Meanwhile, the French aimed for the other end of the line, which ended up in a lot of room because GBR held up this middle bunch. This meant the French had plenty of clear room and could hit the line at 53 kilometers an hour of boat speed. The Spanish and Germans were over, which was great news for the Aussies, who then had clear air to hit the line with speed.
Well, big moments in race 2, Stevie.
Yeah, well, now we see at Mark 1, Australia, well, they were in clear wind. He wasn't quite leading at Mark 1 on board the Australian boat, but they were in that front bunch. The right of leading went to the French, but they went a little bit too far, misjudged the angle into gate 2, and that mistake by De La Pierre opened the door for the Australians. And from this rounding at gate 2, where he got clear, we saw the comms come from Carl Langford. More wind this way, more wind towards the top of the screen. So no surprise to see Australia turn left. They sailed all the way to the boundary. And if you maximise the width of the pitch, effectively get right out to the boundary, it means you should be able to minimise your manoeuvres. And well, the team not quite minimising their manoeuvres out there today was Emirates Great Britain. They had to turn there because they weren't quite making the gate. But at this chance, I think they could have followed the USA. They chose to do one more manoeuvre, came back out this way. And whilst it looks good on paper at the moment, it was actually the USA who had taken that turn. And theirs was a third. And that split-second decision by Ainsley, instead of following USA for maybe a fourth, dropped to 8th.
And the numbers tell the story perfectly. Look at Australia's average speed, 2 kilometers an hour faster than second place team France. Super impressive. But the French's flight time was higher, which suggests they are accelerating better out of maneuvers and getting back on the foils sooner. Our top 3 teams, the 3 teams with less maneuvers, which Lisa did hint to earlier, it's all about minimizing the maneuvers out there in these conditions.
Well, look at that, 14 manoeuvres for Emirates GBR, so pretty easy coaching point for them to be able to pick up to get the British up the fleet in the next race.
So after 2 races of 3 on day number 1, it looks like this. Australia out in front with a 5th and a 1st for 16 points. Then you've got New Zealand sitting in 2nd place. A tie now. Look at that logjam between France, Spain, Denmark, and Great Britain. And the USA sitting in 7th place on 10 points. What a day here in Saint-Tropez, but if all these numbers are a bit confusing, well, let's bring you up to speed on SailGP's scoring system and how the 10 international teams are scored across the season.
At the end of the season, the winning team will lift the SailGP Season 4 Championship trophy and claim their share of $5 million. But how does it all work? Our scoring system awards points for each race that teams compete in across a race event. The top 3 teams with the most points will face off at the event final. One final race in order to determine who takes the event title and battle it out for maximum points towards the season standings. 10 to the winner, 9 for 2nd, and 8 for 3rd. 4th to 10th place are awarded season points based on their position from only the fleet races. These points are crucial for the season-long championship leaderboard. The championship leaderboard is recalculated after each event, and the 3 highest-ranked teams at the end of the season qualify for the winner-take-all grand final.
So now you know, and the fans are anxiously awaiting that third and final race today, Stevie. In talking to Tom Slingsby and looking at the scoreboard, this is going to be huge because we don't know what's going to anticipate. We don't know what's going to come tomorrow as far as the conditions go. So it could be a light wind day and things may be shortened down, but you better get your points on day one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I sort of, Tom's very humble to say it was luck that he got back into it. I think what they did a good job is control of the controllables. If you are in the pack, then you've got to find space. You've got to try and be fast.
Well, for France, SailGP Team Season 4 has not been kind to them, but they found a new way of getting to this event in the south of France.
Le grand départ de Quentin Express. 3, 2, 1, go!
Ahead of the France Sail Grand Prix at Saint-Tropez, the French SailGP team and the Energy Observer Foundation joined forces to promote the Impact League and awareness for low-carbon mobility. Dubbed the Content Express, departing on the 6th of September, Content and the rest of the team journeyed from Barcelona through Nîmes, Marseille, and Saint-Maxime. Using only low-carbon mobility options, such as trains, bikes, hydrogen vehicles, and ultimately by boat. Content and the team successfully reached the pristine waters of Saint-Tropez, a global destination to take in the French Riviera and home to this weekend's Sail Grand Prix. So the French doing their part to limit their carbon footprint as they make their way to their home regatta here at the France Sail Grand Prix, Saint-Tropez, event 3 of season 4. Content Delapierre leading that as he brought his crew here on a very smooth journey from Spain. So Content, we come down to you now, and I know you guys are looking to bounce back and have a big performance here. That second race was huge for you guys. Congratulations on the second. What do you have to do in race number 3 to get yourself back in the hunt for the overall title?
M'entendez?
Content, if you can hear us, we're just kind of figure out how you guys feel getting ready for this third and final race and what you have to do to get maximum points.
I think today we had some good feeling on the boat, and it's pretty shifty and patchy. So for the last race, we just have to keep the eyes out of the boat and win.
And Content, middle of the season, and to change one of the positions on the back 3, you changed your flight controller. We can see Jason Saunders sat in front of you. You know, that seems a big decision mid-season. Can you give us a little insight as to why that's happened?
That's what I said. We had a bad dynamic the last 4 or 5 months, and we were not really on the same page. So you have to make some tough decisions sometimes, and Jason Saunders was probably the best choice that we can pick.
Well, interesting, and I appreciate the candid response there. I think you've probably got some quite difficult decisions to make tactically in the next race. So good luck, and thanks very much for joining us, Content.
Thanks.
Content Delapierre, we appreciate the time, and they will look to get maximum points here on race number 3 on home waters as they have picked up not only an 8th in race number 1, but a 2nd in race number 2. Stevie, we've talked about this many a times. You can have one bad race, but usually if you're down at 8, 9, and 10, you got to come back with some big wins, and he's going to need something along that line in race 3.
Absolutely, I think it's a huge thing, but I think what is different here, this light wind, shifty wind, we can see what a great camera angle that is. Firstly, shows quite how beautiful the Côte d'Azur is, but the wind's coming over that land. Emily showed us that. The wind's coming up or over the land, really gusty wind. It's just hard to be consistent, Emily.
It's really hard to predict, and you've also got to remember that most of the wind is at the top of these 29-meter wings. That's impossible for the strategists to see.
We hear the commentary team talking about those shifty winds, and out here on the water, it's plain to see. You see these big gusts just rolling in over the hills and the town of Saint-Tropez, and it's even for us out here on the water quite difficult to spot, let alone when you're on an F50 foiling around. We heard Conton talking about going into race number 3, that the team all needs to have their eyes out of the boat, and that for me is where that role of the strategist is going to come into fruition so much. That's the 6th person that you'll see running across the F50. They're sitting at the back of the boat, their eyes out of the boat the whole time, looking, searching for that wind, and sometimes probably just crossing their fingers and praying for it. That's what we're going to be looking for in race number 3. We heard Tom Slingsby talking about it, that in that first race of the day, the team got quite lucky. And sometimes we know in sailing it's better to be lucky than good, but the good teams like Tom Slingsby and the Aussies do seem to find that luck. But how good to see the Flying Roo. They're our overall season leaders, come in with a race win in race number 2. We know that the Aussies have really struggled here at this venue, so I'm really, really interested to see how they back up in race number 2. But across the whole race, it is really tight out there. Teams that did well in race number 1 have struggled in race number 2, and that is USA foiling on by. The heart is absolutely racing on that one. This is incredible. Saint-Tropez is turning it on. And I just want to say a big thanks to the fans. They've come out in absolute droves, not just on the water, but also in on the shore. Talking to Contan about it last night, we watched the rugby together, the France team beating the All Blacks, which was great to watch. And he just said he loves coming here, but he was disappointed. Last season, they missed out on that podium race. They started today with a slightly difficult race, but they bounced back with a great second. So I'm really looking to that French team to see how they can bounce back in race number 3 and try and get themselves up onto that podium. So stay tuned. And this breeze, the good news is, it's starting to build. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to France and the France Sail Grand Prix Saint-Tropez, event number 3 of season 4. Alongside Stevie Morrison, Emily Nagel, Lisa Darmanin, I'm Todd Harris. Glad to have you with us on a picture-perfect day here on the Mediterranean. Beautiful time to get something to eat, and I tell you what, it is high living here in the glamorous Saint-Tropez port. This is a beautiful place to be, and what a great place for the world's best sailors to compete on these beautiful, pristine waters of the Mediterranean. Well, we're getting set for race number 3, the 3rd and final race of the day. Remember, there's 2 more races coming tomorrow before the event final, and that will feature just the top 3 points, and we will see how that all shakes down. Good time to get yourself a little bit of merchandise, grab our French flag, and get ready for the 3rd and final race of the day as we take a look at the event leaderboard. Australia out on top, then it's New Zealand, and look at the big tie between France, Spain, Denmark, and Great Britain. USA still in the hunt in 7th on 10 points. The big story, though, Canada being hit with a 10-point deduction for causing collision damage, and that is the Canadians now sitting -1 point. Stevie, not a great way to start, and that pretty much takes them out of the running.
Yeah, I think they're going to really, really struggle from here. But of course, let's remember all of these season points happen. So still Canada have got a fight on their hands. But I think just the key for me, Australia and New Zealand, they've both won a race. Of course, that's very helpful. But when they've had a bad race, they've turned it into something salvageable with a mid-race finish. And I think that will define the finalists here. How do you convert a bad one into a good one?
All right, before we go racing, let's check in down on the water and Lisa Darmanin.
Well, Todd, the wind was supposed to peak around 3 p.m. local time, so that's about 30 minutes from now. We're seeing a lot more gusts on the course, but the light wind spots are still as light as ever, so the manoeuvres are really critical. The manoeuvres, it's about doing them when you're in pressure. So when they're going fast, when they're foiling fast, before they run out of wind, that's when they've got to turn the boat. I can see the teams setting up for the race course, but we keep talking about reading these puffy conditions. And what I'm seeing from water level out here is you can see it, but because it's coming off the shore, it's really late. So you can't really predict it. You don't have as much time to think about it. When you see it, you've got to react fast. So it is easy to see once it's here, but it's very late, so it is tricky. I think we're going to have a really nice reach to Mark 1 here. The gusts are looking fantastic if we get a good puff on that start line.
All right, thank you, Lisa. As we come up under 2 minutes to go before the start of the 3rd and final race, so you see the flags pretty much backing up what Lisa was talking about, and the Australians, winners of the last race, looking to make it 2 for 2 on these last 2 races of the day after a disappointing performance on race 1. But Tom Slingsby, that getting that 5th place, Stevie, was actually a great salvage job by him and his crew.
Yeah, I think it was, and I think we had a good camera angle on that helicopter a minute ago, what the sailors are trying to look for out there. You've got Tom Slingsby obviously driving the boat, wing trimmer Carl Langford we heard from, but also I think it's a big day for Tash Bryan. It's her job to get her head out of the boat. Lisa mentioned the gusts and the lulls. For any of you that played Super Mario Kart at home and you get one of those speed boosts as you run over a rocket, that's a gust of wind. If you hit a banana skin, that's like running into a no-wind area and you're just going to slow down. Boats will pretty much stop. And that's effectively what the sailors are doing. They're trying to find all those gusts of wind that are going to give them the big speed boost. But right now, it's about hitting that line in 1 minute's time.
Emily, you get the idea that Stevie played a lot of Super Mario Kart.
I do indeed, but it does make sense. And with the big differential between the gusts and lulls, that difference from getting one of your speed gains is going to be even, or a banana peel is going to be even bigger.
That's right. Really tight here, Stevie. 40 seconds before the line goes white.
Yeah, there's not long to go to the start. We know the positioning right now is so crucial, even more so in these light winds. Those big 29-metre wings are blocking the wind, and New Zealand out the back of the fleet at the moment, they're going to be in less wind. I think they might struggle to make the line from there. They're a long way back, but they are foiling. Australia and Canada well positioned for our pole position. Mid-line is the favourite start to hit the line, but it's all about being on the foils and fast at that point. Emirates Great Britain well positioned as well. 10 seconds to go to the start. Here we go. The crew's winded up. They've got the line in sight. Who's got their timing right as the line's about to turn white? Go, and we are clear start. Great start by Emirates New Zealand. France and USA, can they make it happen? Sorry, Emirates Great Britain out the bottom of the line. They look like they're going to have a fast inside line, but Emirates, can they hang on?
USA also in the mix as they approach mark number 1. The wind is up. The USA into the mark first, and they will control this race and get the whole shot with France right behind them.
Great start by Jimmy Spittle and a great start by Quentin de la Pierre on board the French boat. They really converted that top of the line fast angle so well as we see the boats head away downwind. That's Ainsley talking to his strategist Hannah Mills here.
Should reload again in 2.
They're just talking about the wind coming. A reload. That means we're going to get a bit more breeze, and we can see now the angle of the course has changed a bit. They're progressing right down these ladder lines by not turning at Mark 1. Big difference from the first 2 races, and that will favour the leaders even more.
This is almost a case of follow the leader. Look at this with the Americans out in front, France and Great Britain 1, 2, and 3 with the Australians the first to blink and bear away.
Yeah, well, they've turned the boat away trying to make something happen, but are they well lined up for gate 2? Looks to me like the wind has rotated a bit to the bottom left-hand corner of our screen, which means that you would not be surprised to see some of the boats look to do a right turn and come back this way. But if you're the USA, I think you're going to be looking at going straight and keeping things pretty simple.
Looks like the Americans, as Stevie pointed out, are right on the line, that ley line into the gate. It looks like they're going to make that left-hand turn and stay on that right side of the course.
Yeah, I think they just don't want to do a manoeuvre there for the USA. Of course, we can't quite see the wind they can see, but it was interesting that France and Emirates Great Britain were happy to come back this way, because this is the different favouring to the race before, but it feels like maybe the wind's turned to the left. Perhaps now would be a good time to go down and find out of Lisa. Have we had a wind shift on the course, Lisa?
Good. Let's go.
Yeah, it has definitely turned to the left. So when we started the race, it was the most right forecast. So now we can expect as it dies, it will slowly go more to the left. That's what we saw yesterday anyway, and we're seeing right now. But still really good pressure out on the left-hand side. I think that where the French are at the moment, they will be in a very strong position.
Right now, France sitting in second place, the U.S. out in front. Emirates GBR showing in third place, but very even with the French, and then the Australians coming into view in fourth.
Yeah, crucial, though, the French have done a manoeuvre and they're back on the foils, so they look as having a bit of a loss to the USA at the moment, but it could play out longer term.
And here's why. We can see that the USA on the top of our screen, they're in 19-20 kilometres an hour of wind, and so they've had a bit more boat speed. Currently it's dropped because of their manoeuvre, but the French and the British on the other side of the course have a little bit less wind, 17.
Really patchy out there, Todd, and we can see at the moment the USA, Jimmy Spittle, well, Saint-Tropez for the USA last year, and he seems to like it here.
So Spithill and the Americans trying to pick up a victory here after a disappointing first race where they got ninth If they could finish off with a third and a first to wrap the day up, Stevie, they'll be in great position for tomorrow.
Look at how much the wind's changing direction, Todd. USA are nearly sailing straight up the course with the wind now coming from the top right of our screen. So they're really making fast progress up here, but the wind is changing direction all the time. And as we say that, look, Jimmy Spithill, he has to turn the boat away, not because of any other boats, but because the wind has changed its direction and the French are forced to manoeuvre to keep out of the way of the Germans.
Entire French-speaking crew there for Quentin Delapierre.
Yeah, it's interesting. You hear Kevin Pepier, the wing trimmer, talking about the target speed he wanted, and then we heard Quentin say, Sampa is nice. Nice, Kevin. Thanks for the information. So the comms are clear. Whatever language they're in, it's all about clear comms.
Jimmy Spithill now with the Americans as they approach gate number 3 in the final race of the day.
Well, Rockwool Denmark, they've done a nice job of getting out in front again, and it's about the battle in the pack. USA, well, we've seen every team that has led at gate 3 have managed to take away the win and bring it home.
Look at that for USA, 45 kilometers an hour average speed, highest foiling percentage as well out of all the teams at almost 90%. And that's just going to allow them to stretch their legs even further and further cement this win, hopefully.
Has there been another shift? That's the big question as they make the head back down the course. Lisa, what are you seeing?
It's really difficult out here. The wind is becoming very unstable. We're seeing different things on different sides of the courses. The boats are actually pointing in all different directions. We've got a big battle about to happen between New Zealand, Australia and Great Britain. It is all happening out here. Anything can happen here.
Wind's really rotated to the side of the course that Australia are on at the moment, so Australia and New Zealand, it should be good news for them, but the New Zealand boat not foiling. Good opportunity for Slingsby here to get back in the race. Do the French boat get ahead? Yes, they do. I think for New Zealand and Australia, this is a crucial leg. They went into this race first and second, but look how tight that pack is. Anywhere from third to ninth is very easily achieved by any of those key teams right now, but one thing's for sure, the boats that are on the foils are going to be a lot more relaxed than those boats behind, as New Zealand put in another manoeuvre in the pack. It's going to be tricky for them. They need to get foiling soon.
And the lead for the Americans now 400 meters over second place and Denmark. Meanwhile, the battle down at the bottom, as Stevie pointed out, a lot of positions to be shifted here as the wind holding just over 15 kilometers an hour as we approach leg number 4. This will be gate 4 for the Americans. They are way out in front. This is a massive lead, Stevie. This might be the biggest lead they've had all year, going back to last year when their lead wasn't this big, but they won the overall.
Well, my memory is not what it was, but I'm pretty sure they haven't won a race yet this season. So this would be a big moment for the US team. They need to get their wheels back on the campaign, as it were, and this is a good one for Jimmy Spithill. This is exactly where he did it last season in Saint-Tropez. Something in the water here that he seems to like, that's for sure, because they're sailing very smooth. But it just kind of as well goes to show the point. They can look pretty average when they're in the pack, as a lot of these teams do. All the teams, if you put them out in front, then they do a pretty nice job.
Look like rock stars, right?
Yeah.
Touch and go, touch and go, touch and go.
Jimmy Spithill calling for the touch and go.
Oh, that's going to be a bit of a messy tack. They just saved it. They managed to lower it into the water quite nicely, but here we go. Wind, look at this, top of our screen, Australia. They turn left under the Saint-Tropez shoreline. They've got barely any wind up there back to ninth. Right-hand side of our screen, New Zealand, they did the extra manoeuvre, but they found the extra wind, and it's wind that wins here in Saint-Tropez. And look at that, New Zealand up to 5th, Australia back to 9th. How pivotal will that last 2 minutes be?
Looking at that downwind leg for our leading teams, we can see just how much the USA stretched ahead. Almost 50 kilometers an hour average speed, while the Danish and GBL were down at 47. All teams doing one maneuver, but the British, look how far they sailed, only 1 kilometer, and that is a huge difference from 1.5, clearly showing that the breeze shift that they got massively shortened distance sailed.
Quite a few maneuvers for Emirates GBR in race number 2. They put up 14 on the board, Stevie, so maybe they learned their lesson here, and they've obviously picked the right side, as Sir Ben Ainslie, one of the best in the business, has got his team in 3rd place. They finished in 2nd in race number 1 before falling back to 8th in race number 2, so this is a pivotal moment for them as well.
Yeah, huge moment.
Yeah, I reckon just send it, mate.
Definitely.
Well said, Tom.
Keep it simple, Tom. That is a fair point. Yeah, I think, you know, the Danish, they are doing such a nice job here. We come on board Nikolai Seherstedt. It sounds pretty calm, but they've gone out to that side of the course where the Kiwis made a big gain. The right-hand side of the course, we call it, it's sailing top of our screen at the moment. And we see now it's changing all the time. There we go. Ben Ainsley discussing tactics. He's up to third. Good comeback by the British crew here. Talking about having a cross, he's ahead of the French. Really shifty. You can see at one moment the crews are nearly sailing straight up our ladder lines. Here we go, right of way, France. They've had a big shift in the wind. Emirates, Great Britain, look, they've had to turn right out of their way. That was just a big wind change direction. Great Britain had to react, as we see. USA, Denmark, France are 1, 2, 3 at the moment, up and foiling, but they're sailing nearly parallel to our ladder lines.
So, Stevie, is this a case where the Americans are sailing better and the Danes have just found the better spot on the course? Because it was a 400-meter lead, now down to 200-meter.
I think, to be honest, probably you just end up in a bit less wind. Sometimes you're going to have your time, if you like, and you're going to get wind or you're not going to get wind, as we see there. The Danish, look, the wind's just changed direction. Look at the wake off the back of the boat. They were sailing nearly up the ladder lines. They're now sailing nearly across the ladder lines. Part of that's to try and build speed before the manoeuvre, but a big part's the wind's changed direction. The wind changed direction. We're not making any progress to the gate. Let's turn the boat, and then we'll be aiming more towards the gate. It's all about the time you take to get between gates, minimising that. You do that by either going faster or by doing less distance.
Hey, taking off. This is course here.
So through the last gate, it is Jimmy Spithill and USA SailGP. A much-needed victory for the Americans. It was a year ago when they won the overall here in Saint-Tropez. And in race number 3, Spithill and company will take the victory on the Mediterranean.
Wow, there's some big action here, as we can see now. Denmark well positioned for second, but New Zealand, well, they were last off the start line. They're currently showing as 5th, but I think it's going to be tight at the top here between Great Britain, France. And if it does get tight and they get into a fight, don't be surprised to see New Zealand back in this race. Denmark, good, solid, consistent day out there, though.
Yeah, but you guys are just doing nothing. You're just doing nothing out there. Nice work, boys. Nice one, Hans.
That's a bit of feedback from Tom Johnson. All he does all day is ease that big wing sail out while the big grinders on the front make it happen for him. But here we go. France, they have the right of way. They have to do whatever they want here. They've got to turn right eventually, but if he can get close to Great Britain, don't be expected to see him try and push him off the course. Does Ainsley think he's clear ahead? He obviously does. He's carrying on. The French have to turn. Emirates GBR, no problem, says Ainsley, and he's round the front. A good third position for them. Good result for the French, and that's some comeback by Emirates New Zealand. How important that's going to be, as I said, I think it's all about how do you turn your bad ones into decent ones.
Perfect judgment, as Ben Ainsley and Hannah Mills predict that perfectly. They had the distance to get around, and it is Emirates GBR that gets 3rd place. France will hold on for 4th place after finishing 2nd in race number 2. So now, get out your advocates and start counting. Day number 1 points. We'll tabulate them quickly. So what a finish for France in the mix yet again, and it'll be the Kiwis that'll hold on for 5th. So it's a 1, 6, and a 5 for Peter Burling after winning that first race.
There we go. Already the debrief taking place on board New Zealand there. Pete Seno was a bit late, and then when they were behind everyone, they were stuck in the pack. But good result here for the Germans, going to bring it home in 6th. Nice job. They've had a solid day. It's going to be so interesting to look at these results. It's been so up and down there. I think it's going to be really, really tight. And we look forward to seeing what we're left with.
Remember, Germany, the first year in the SailGP full season, and Spain will come in right behind them in 7th place to back up the 4th they got in race number 2 and the 6th in race number 1, the winners of the last event in Los Angeles. Now, the battle is on for the bottom, and Stevie, these points are huge. 8th is way better than 9th and 10th, and right now Australia's trying to salvage things, but Canada's trying to ruin the party.
Yeah, I mean, the Canadians, well, they've got the right of way here, and it's probably more important, these points, for Australia than Canada at this stage of things, because the Australians need to get anything they can. This is potentially an 8th place here. Phil Robertson, again, he's giving a little bit of feedback to the umpires the whole time, saying he had to avoid the collision. Not sure about that one, I've got to be honest with you. But anyway, the Australians, they could really do with getting home in 8th because they've had a bit of a decent day with the comeback and a race win. But this one, it's going to hurt them on the scoreboard, that's for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a 5, 1, and an 8 for Tom Slingsby. And a rough day with those 8 collision points docked to Canada and Phil Robertson after that incident with Spain.
I just think it's one of those things in sport, Todd, isn't it? I mean, the rules are the rules, but everyone can interpret the rules and see the one situation slightly differently. I mean, it was a tight call that the umpires made. Phil's clearly going to see it very differently to how Craig Mitchell and his team saw it, and probably how the Spanish saw it. Everyone sees it differently, but the rules are the rules. And yeah, tough day for them. Tough day for the Swiss as well.
Started off with a 4th in the first race, and the Swiss end up with 2 last-place performances. So 1 point apiece for those, 10 points for the win, 1 for last. So the Swiss have plenty of debriefing to do here in Saint-Tropez.
Here we go, the start was obviously, we can see crucial, and it was France, USA and GBR that have had the space. They've got space and they're on that front row with 13 seconds to go. That's generally speaking a pretty good position to be in because you can pick your angle, but the boats closer to the bottom here, France and USA, they will have a faster angle from here to Mark 1. So despite the 3 boats having a very similar start, it was the faster angle from here for the USA and France that got them to Mark 1 in the lead.
And that is shown in the numbers from the race as well. We saw the USA made it to Mark 1, they had clear air, and they held that average speed all the way through the race, getting to 43.6 kilometers an hour average speed. You'll notice that it's actually New Zealand who sailed the shortest distance, and Denmark. They were sailing the shifts more than pressure, so they've got slower average speeds but did sail a shorter distance, which got them further up that leaderboard. But still, less maneuvers was the biggest gain.
Well, the name of the game is consistency, and it is hard to be consistent when the conditions are like this. It is puffy, it is shifty. No one knows that better than Jimmy Spithill. He is the driver of USA SailGP. Jimmy, good to have you with us again, my friend. You start off with a 9th. You guys bounce back nicely in race number 2 with a 3rd, and then you win race number 3. This sets you up nicely for day number 2. And again, you know what it's like. You don't know what to expect on Championship Sunday.
Yeah, that's right, Todd. I mean, look, it was pretty frustrating race 1. I just didn't get off the line well, and then just made a couple of bad tactical decisions during that race, and we just sort of never were able to get on the passing lanes. But again, a good sign of strength for the team to bounce back in the 2nd race and then the 3rd race to get the win. It's been a little bit of time between drinks on getting a race win, so that's a great boost.
What is it about these French waters, Jimmy, that you and your crew seem to excel in? You guys just feel at home here on the Mediterranean.
Well, Todd, super yachts, supercars, supermodels, what's not to like, mate?
Jimmy, I thought it was the rosé. Yeah, what happened yesterday? The practice, you guys perhaps needed a bit of a wash-off to find your form. Is that what happened yesterday, pre-racing?
Yeah, we had one, basically. So, yeah, I'll put my hand up for that. We were just trying to do a down-speed barroway and up near the breakwater, and you couldn't really see the wind on the water that well, and yeah, just my mistake.
Jimmy, what are you thinking about tomorrow, and what have you seen as far as the forecast going? Is it going to be a day where the 29 wing is going to stay up there, you drop down to 4, or do you think it's going to be similar conditions?
I'm not sure. I mean, the forecast seems to change right until the morning of race day. So, look, I think it's just a great sign. We've had good breeze yesterday and today, and look, fingers crossed we can get the boats on the foils for the Super Sunday.
All right, cheers, Jimmy. Appreciate the time again, and we wish you the best of luck tomorrow on Super Sunday. Remember, 2 more fleet races, and then it is on to the event final where only the top 3 teams will compete. Remember, last year the Americans won it, and this was the moment. We just saw this just a short moment ago, and it is a complete and utter disaster for Emirates.
Wow.
For the New Zealand team right now. It looks like everyone's accounted for. There's Peter Burling assessing the damage. And, Stevie, that is the operative word, damage.
Well, I mean, that's disaster. I don't know about damage. We don't know quite what's happened. But, I mean, this is another one of those potentially season-defining moments. I mean, look at that. There is no way that wing is going back together very quickly. I mean, it's great to hear everyone's okay, but I mean, who knows what's happened out there? Pete Burling, he looks like he's not entirely sure what's happened out there. You can see him standing, helmet off. Blair Tuke put his helmet back on, and I mean, I think they'd probably be right near the top of the leaderboard after the first day. In fact, I think they are joint first as we stand, but there's no way they're sailing with that wing tomorrow. So absolutely disastrous for them.
All right, we will have to get more information and video to see what happened with the New Zealand team while the race finished, and they had an absolute mechanical disaster there as this fell apart completely. All right, so we'll take a deep breath and we'll reassess everything as we take a look at the highlights from a great day of racing here on what we thought, Stevie, might be low wind, but it showed up for us.
Yeah, well, it was a low wind day, but it still didn't stop those Australians from getting the Rolex best start time, 0.012 of a second. But they weren't quite at full speed when the gun went, so the best start, they didn't quite convert. That'll be something for them to work on. And we saw here it was space was the name of the game out there on the water today, really. If you're in the lead, it was easy to get space, but if you're in the pack, how you managed to find space was absolutely crucial out there. And, well, we saw again the next start, it was all about good timing. A few boats were over early, but again, accuracy and space. Australia did a nice job of this in race 2. And once you're out in front, it's amazing how good you can look, Tom.
And the Aussies looked absolutely the spot. Perfect, Stevie. As you talk about, they rarely make mistakes, unforced errors when they have this lead.
Well, they do. They've got good manoeuvres and they're pretty clinical. And I think for the French, encouraging first day overall. New flight controller on board, and by the third race, they converted that into a very good start. But it just showed two teams that had perhaps struggled through the day, stick them out in front, give them a bit of space. USA sailed away to a comfortable win, and the French, well, they were in the pack, but they managed to just about salvage a decent result out of it and kept themselves in there. So it is devil's in the detail on a day like today, but if you get it right, it looks pretty good.
So congratulations, Jimmy Spithill, USA SailGP. They win the third and final race on the day. And look at this leaderboard. Atop, it's Denmark and New Zealand tied on 21, and the Americans and Great Britain tied on second with 20, with France and Australia knocking on the door. So let's go down on the water once more before we say goodbye. Nikolaj Sehested and Rockwell, Denmark. Nikolaj, you guys find yourself in the enviable position of being on top, looking at day number 2, Championship Sunday. What is the plan, and what are you seeing for the forecast for wind tomorrow?
Sorry, I have a bit of bad connection, but I assume you ask what are we, how we feel and looking for tomorrow. It's, yeah, it was a frustrating day, to be honest, but I think it was for most teams. It was really tricky out here and shifty, and yeah, it wasn't easy to get the shift right, so if it doesn't feel as good as it might look on the scoreboard, but that's something we can help for tomorrow. And I think, yeah, forecast for tomorrow is pretty similar conditions, I think. So, yeah, tricky, light, shifty again tomorrow. It's a bit more we had today.
All right, appreciate Nikolaj. We wish you the best of luck tomorrow on Championship Sunday. Nikolaj Sehested and Rockwell, Denmark, doing very well out on the Mediterranean today as they put themselves in a great position for tomorrow. And we look forward to getting more information on what happened with New Zealand. We check in now on the water, and Lisa Darmanin.
Well, I'm right beside the New Zealand boat right now, and it's actually just devastating to see that wing, but the team seems to have done a great job to salvage everything they can. They've got the tech team, all the sailors, they've put the wing back on the boat, and they're towing in right now. We've got the other wing, the other parts of the wing that's still intact getting towed in, so absolutely gutting way for them. They finished the race, they jibed over it, and then just had a big issue, and it fell out of the sky.
Lisa, what precipitated the whole? Was there a sequence of events? Did they catch a big gust? Can you explain what happened, and did you see it take place?
I was quite far away when it was happening. I'm sure that we can talk to the sailors once we get to shore, but it is, as I said, getting gusty out here. They are quite big wings. We don't really know what happened, but the wing basically folded whilst they were sailing. So we'll have to talk to the sailors, and lucky it seems like they're all standing up and fixing what they can out here.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa. That'll wrap things up for day number 1, and what a dramatic way to end day number 1 of the France Sail Grand Prix Saint-Tropez, and we are all set for Championship Sunday. So for Stevie Morrison, Emily Nagel, and Lisa Darmanin down on the water, I'm Todd Harris. We will see you tomorrow from Saint-Tropez.
And then we'll be racing here in Saint-Tropez.
Did nothing there to even consider moving out of the way.
It is New Zealand that wins race number 1.
Oh, wow. Did New Zealand give enough space?
The Australians win race 2 in France.
I reckon just send it, mate.
A much-needed victory for the Americans.